Hey, y'all need a break? Listen to these stories from r/entitled parents. My mother thinks I'm a bank. I recently went through a breakup. It was amicable and we're still very good friends. I had to move out of the apartment we shared. Almost immediately I got a perfect apartment which has 2 bedrooms. I wanted to use the spare room as my gaming room/study. I recently got a promotion and have the opportunity to live on my own. My mom heard I was planning to move in on my own and she was not happy. She kept saying how it's dangerous to be alone, and that it's too expensive. I told her that the building has CCTV, security, and other safety features. I also reminded her that I can afford this luxury and I need to be on my own. She said I could save more money by sharing the apartment and that she knows a girl looking for a room. I didn't feel comfortable to share with a random stranger and told her so. She called me selfish for not helping another person. I genuinely thought she was just looking out for me, but she then said, "How am I supposed to get a loan off you when you're spending so much money on rent? I need money for loads of things and I can't get a loan from the bank." Edit. Thanks everyone for your support and the tips. I've decided to have limited contact with her. I'm going through a lot and it made me realize that she wasn't concerned about my well-being, just my money. Edit 2. Thank you for the awards. There is some people saying that I should be giving my mother a loan, or not to ruin my relationship with her because of this. One thing I will say is that beforehand she used to ask me for money to help with the house or my little sister. I had no issues with doing that. It was the fact that she would spend the money on herself not to fix the house or help my sister. Being hated for being free. Hello everybody, new member here. I'd just like to share an experience I've had recently. It's a long read, but one I believe many of you will likely relate to. As a 27 male, I have many friends with children, mostly in the toddler age group, as well as many friends without children, like myself. Now, don't get me wrong, I love being the fun friend/uncle/friend uncle, LOL, but I've always stood firm in my decision not to sire children. To that end, most of my friends with children have grown to accept that and we just don't bring it up. No cause to, right? I think my friends just expect that one day I, and whoever I may be courting, will announce a pregnancy, to which end I know they'll be disappointed. But, that's okay. See, being a single, childless young man, I naturally have quite a bit more freedom in life than my friends with children. I can still live life on a whim, they can't. I can roughly predict what the next 2 weeks will hold, they can't. If I want to have kids later in life I can reverse that decision, would likely adopt, they can't. To that end, most of my friends with children are still wholesome and loving friends. They love to see me traveling to exotic places, and they adore the small trinkets and lengthy stories I bring home with me. One set of friends, however, has shown their true colors lately. See, over the past few years I have helped them left, right, and center, financially. I don't mind because they have mouths to feed and I know how it feels to struggle, so I don't want to see my friends and their children doing the same. The most notable expense was the $1,800 I shelled out to literally buy them a running vehicle. Bear that in mind, that $1,800 will be important later. The friends in question have a 3-year-old together, and the girlfriend has a 9-year-old from a previous relationship. This couple in particular has turned very bitter to me lately, almost as soon as they found out that I'm planning a month-long trip to Brazil in June. My friend's immediate response was disgusted noise, "You should be saving that money so you can buy a house and start a family," and I replied, "I have no interest in reproducing, and I'm not ready to set an anchor." We've discussed that, and his girlfriend pipes in, "Yeah, whatever. Must be nice to just fly off all over the world. Maybe one day you'll know what it's like to be responsible instead of only thinking about you." Excuse me. I've worked my fingers to the bone to save for this vacation, and all my previous voyages, and to that end I'm not done yet. I've been strictly budgeting my money for over a year to make this happen. I even gave up both cigarettes and soda to save a few more dollars per week. No eating out, no buying video games, basically nothing outside of the essentials. I work more hours per week than both of them combined, not judging, they have kids to care for, but still I earned this, and then for them to act like I'm a lesser man because I didn't accidentally reproduce right out of high school. To me, that was both laughable and pathetic. Now, even at this point I had chalked it up to, okay, they resent me for it in the moment. I guess I understand that. Because I know that neither of them has ever gotten to do such a thing, and I do feel somewhat like a jerk that they have to watch me fly off to Brazil knowing they can't afford to do much because, well, raising children is expensive. But then, they take it a massive step further and ask me to borrow $3,000 so they too can do something this summer. She even whipped out her phone and pulled up the resort they wanted to stay at on Table Rock Lake, Missouri. As soon as I noticed she'd entered the info for a 14-day stay totaling $2,400, I realized they had planned to ask for this money all along. I was honestly speechless for a moment. So eventually I said something along the lines of, "Look man, I've been saving for this for over a year. I can't afford to loan any of that money out, or I won't be able to afford to go on my vacation. And to be honest, I still have to recoup that $1,800 I loaned y'all before my plans are even back in the green, so I'm sorry but the answer is no." And they just lost it. All you single a-holes ever think about is yourself. You have no idea what it's like. We never get to do anything. Some friend you are. You'd rather go off by yourself than help our kids have a good summer. At that point I simply left without another word. It is clear to me now that all I ever was a piggy bank. In truth, I guess it was my fault for being proud of my frugality and occasionally mentioning my savings like, "Hey man, I hit $10,000 today, 2/3 of the way there." This all happened last weekend, and even today I received another text, "Are you sure we can't all just go to the lake together? The kids really need this. It's not like you can't go to Brazil another time." And this, friends, has been a hastily written and hurtful example of entitlement. Takeaways: 1. Don't discuss your finances with anyone that isn't directly affiliated with them, yourself and/or your partner, maybe your parents, but not your friends. 2. Never loan money to friends. Treat it as a gift that you will not see returned. If you do see it returned, treat it as a nice surprise. 3. Thank you for reading, and feel free to share discourse or similar stories in the comments. Note: the sire is a replacement of the wrong term I used. When my kids turn 15, they will be your responsibilities. Growing up, my brother was given a lot more attention and resources than me, because my parents believed that as the firstborn son, he was meant to do big things. Long story short, he made them go bankrupt to pay for his lifestyle and then went bankrupt himself, while I worked very hard to be where I am today in a different country which has a better education system, but college is very expensive. He got a girl pregnant and they had a daughter who is a year old. He announced to the family that when his daughter and future kids turned 15, he would send them to me, and I would be 100% responsible for them until they finish college, because I have money and no kids. This was after they physically, mentally, and financially abused me for years. I told them that I only rescue cats. My husband and I are cat people. They thought I was joking. I guess when the kid is 15, they will realize I meant exactly what I said. Entitled dad tries to gaslight, manipulate, and extort me for $90,000 over a used Prius because I got the coronavirus vaccine. I apologize, this is going to be pretty long, and might actually belong in r/raised by narcissists, but since they're anti-vaxxer Karens, I'm putting this here. So my parents are complete anti-vaxxer Karens/Darrens. We're talking full-on vaccines cause autism, and coronavirus was invented by Bill Gates to mind control us all with spike proteins, horse-based guzzling types with no sense of personal responsibility or empathy for others. I repeatedly watched them get kicked out of businesses for refusing to wear a mask, and my Karen mother even had a meltdown in a grocery store that I'm surprised wasn't recorded and blasted all over the internet, but that's not what this story is about. The problem came around when I, non-binary, 24, got the vaccine for work. My job has me dealing with a lot of people, and a large amount of them are elderly, pregnant, or immune-compromised. I figured I'd just get it and not tell them since I live about an hour away in the next state over and, at the time, visited them once a week on my day off. After my second shot I got a little sick. Note: if you get the shot, make sure you drink a lot of electrolyte drinks after or you'll feel like crap. And while laid up in bed I called my sister, who lives 4 hours away, because it was her birthday. During the conversation I mentioned that I'd gotten the vaccine. Unbeknownst to me, my Karen mother was in the car with her during a visit I didn't know about and heard every word. She proceeds to have a 5-alarm meltdown at my sister's house saying that I am going to die while my sister gives me a play-by-play via text. When my mother returned at the end of the week she called me and told me that I'm no longer allowed over at her house unless I take these supplements she got off Facebook to stop the spike proteins, and that I'm not allowed to visit my brother, who is 39 and lives 2 states over, or his kids. At this point I'd had enough of her crap and I told her my health is none of her business, and whether or not I can visit is my brother's decision, not hers. She exploded and I hung up the phone. An important thing to note here is that the car I drive, a used Prius, technically belonged to my grandparents. After my grandmother had a stroke and got in a car crash, a minor one where no one was injured, thank God, they decided to give me the car since I needed one, and told my dad to make that happen since he had power of attorney. He agreed to do it in exchange for $2,500 that he'd put towards the $90,000 Parent Plus loan he has for my college. I gave him $600 a month in addition to paying my own loans to help, since it's a lot of money even though his salary is around $200,000 and I make $17 per hour. Midway through my exile I decided to try to be the bigger person and clear things up with my mom. I invited her out to lunch to listen to her concerns and establish some boundaries for the both of us so we can move on with our relationship. I know that sounds dumb, but I thought since she gave birth to me I could reason with her and we could talk it out like adults. That didn't happen. The entire lunch she treated me like I was diseased. She wouldn't touch or hug me, and kept her food as far away from me as possible. When I try to broach the subject of apologizing and patching this up, she launches into a tirade about how she will not compromise or walk on eggshells for me. For no reason she drags my sexuality into it. I've been openly queer since I was a teen, and while they're not openly disapproving, they still avoid the topic like the plague. I never told them I was non-binary because I knew how they'd react, and said since it makes her uncomfortable, and I needed psychological help. That was my last straw. I said goodbye, walked away from the table, and decided to go no contact while I grieved and made a plan for how to move forward. Fast forward a few weeks when I went to renew my tabs and made an appointment to renew my license. They get sent to my parents' house because my dad still holds the title. Since I still had limited contact with my dad and I asked him about it, and we agreed to get the car title settled. I tell him I'll go anywhere but the house to do it because I didn't want to face mom while I was still angry and say something to her that I'd regret. He kept moving the time and place around until last night he called and finally said either I come to the house to confront them or he'll call the police. I remind him that they both forbade me from going back to the house and I shit you not he went full gaslight and says, "No, we did not. You're making stuff up." I tell him I am not going to the house and that's when he told me I needed to come back for the title paperwork and to sign a promissory note. I ask him what the promissory note is for and he told me it's an agreement to pay the Parent Plus loan back to him. He literally said it was the only leverage he had over me, and if I didn't sign I wasn't getting the car. I told him it wasn't my loan, and he got really angry and called me a bunch of names. He ended the conversation by telling me either I show up at the house or forfeit the free car. I asked for my $2.5 thousand back then, and he told me to f*** off. After a night of crying, I called a sister and made a plan to close the bank account my dad has access to and just get a different car with the money I have in my savings, and leave my grandparents' car and keys in their driveway while they're gone, and just mail them some money each month for the loan without a return address. A used Prius is not worth signing my life away to some entitled POS. TLDR, my anti-vaxxer parents got mad I got the vaccine, and tried to get me to agree to pay them back a $90,000 loan they took out to get the title and tabs for a car my grandparents willed to me. I decided that my freedom is worth more than an $8,000 used Prius. Entitled dad tries to extort me for $90,000 over a used Prius because I got the coronavirus vaccine. Sorry for the long post. This is the follow-up to my original post here. Hello again Reddit. I'd first like to thank everyone who commented on my original post. I cannot explain to you the relief in knowing I'm not alone in this, and your advice was extremely helpful. It's been a whirlwind of a week, but I can proudly say I've officially gone no contact with crazy anti-vaxxer mom and dad. Honestly, I've never felt more relieved. I knew after the post I had to do something ASAP. I decided at the end of my last post that it wasn't worth keeping the car. I texted my manager at work Sunday and she greenlighted a PTO day for me the following Monday. First thing I did was go straight to my bank the moment it opened and explained my situation. The clerk I worked with was extremely understanding and helped me plan a strategy. I couldn't ditch the car until Saturday, and I didn't want entitled dad figuring out what I was up to until it was too late. She suggested we keep the old account up since he could see it, but move most of my money to a new account though a withdrawal/deposit so it just looked like I paid rent or something. While we worked the transaction I texted entitled dad, agreeing to meet next week Thursday to sign the promissory note. This smug a-hole replied that was fine and said, "It's good you're coming to your senses." I'm amazed I didn't pull something with how hard my eyes rolled. Once I finished up at the bank, I thanked the clerk and moved on to my next move. Obviously I was going to need a new car. I'm sure entitled dad thought he wiped me out with that $2.5 thousand. He didn't have access to my savings account, so he didn't have a clue how much money I actually had saved up. Late Sunday night I inquired about a lot of used cars in my area, and got a response back from a dealer who had a car I liked with decent mileage right in my price range. After the bank I drove over there, and after a quick inspection and look at the car's history, I went ahead and bought it. While I waited for all the paperwork to go through, I tapped away on my phone and extricated myself from everything I shared with them. Car insurance, health insurance, everything. I decided in order to go full no contact, I needed to vanish from their life completely. Car purchased, I moved on to my next move, changing my phone number. Entitled dad still had me on his phone plan. I did worry that I'd have to get a new phone, since technically he bought it back in December. I gave him the money, and he went into the store. Luckily, since I paid the full amount and it wasn't on a payment plan, I got to keep my phone. Score. Getting on my own account and switching everything took all of 15 minutes, and I walked out a free human. I went home and talked to my landlord about the event. She lives with me, it's a shared house, and said if entitled dad comes knocking for me she'll call the cops, which is super cool of her. My manager, who knows my situation and is a real MVP, helped me pick up my new car on Tuesday. That just left getting rid of the Prius. Obviously, I'd need help. I couldn't drive the car there and just get a cab back since Entitled Dad's house is way out in the sticks. I don't have a lot of friends since I moved here during the lockdown and haven't done a lot of going out and socializing even though I'm vaccinated. So I asked my partner and my rock through this whole nightmare. Since he can't drive long distances due to a health problem, he asked some of our mutual friends, his friends who I've only hung out with a handful of times. I didn't think anybody would do it, since I don't exactly live close to my parents, and I needed to drop off the car in the dead of night to ensure my safety. To my surprise, multiple people came forward saying they'd help. Reddit, I cannot impress upon you the relief in just knowing I have allies. I nearly burst into tears when I got the texts volunteering to not only meet me in the middle of nowhere at the dead of night then drive my sorry ass back home, but offers to have me stay with them instead just in case Entitled Dad tried to hunt me down. It just felt so good to know people cared about what I was going through and wanted to help, and I felt so deeply moved by their kindness and generosity. After the most nerve-wracking week of my life, I woke up at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning and met my partners in Not Really a Crime at a gas station near Entitled Dad's house. We successfully dropped off the Prius, and once I got back home I immediately turned around and drove to my brother's place in the next state to meet up with my sister and hang out with my adorable little baby nieces. The best part is, while I was hanging out with the kids, Entitled Dad called my sister livid that I wasn't answering the phone and demanded to know how the Prius got to his house. My sister looked at me dead in the eye, as she told Entitled Dad that she has no idea what he's talking about, and that I'd been at my brother's place since Friday. When he demanded that he talk to me, she said he couldn't because I had already left, and hung up the phone. She told me over a nice bottle of bourbon that she'd also been planning on going no contact with them for a while, and she was so proud of me for having the strength to pull all of this off. Now I'm just straight chilling, looking forward to the future with my court appearance for a legal name change looming just over the horizon and following up on a couple applications I put out for some higher paying jobs in my field. I can't say for sure that they won't try something, but Entitled Dad is very limited in what he can do. Really, it feels like I've dropped a huge weight. They really caused me a great deal of pain and suffering throughout my years on this planet, and it feels great to finally be free. TLDR. Entitled Dad tried to extort me for a lot of money over a car because he thought I couldn't fight back. He was wrong, and I have even more people in my corner than even I realized. That's the end of my tale, Reddit. Thank you for all your previous comments and support, I really appreciate it. Just remember, even if you think you're all alone, more people care about you than you might realize. Thanks for reading. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.